was a gray morning, the kind of day when the clouds pressed low and heavy over the city. The man walked quickly to his workplace, his jacket thin against the cold air. He had worked at the warehouse for years, and though the job was not easy, it gave him enough to pay rent and buy food. He never expected much more from life, but he valued the small things he had. As he neared the gates of the warehouse, a sudden noise made him stop. It was a weak cry, followed by the sound of something falling to the ground. He turned his head and saw an old alien woman collapse near the street corner. Her thin arms trembled, her strange gray skin looked pale and cracked, and her eyes were half closed. People passed her by without stopping. Some even crossed to the other side of the street. One man muttered, "Worthless creature," and walked faster. The workers around the warehouse did not even glance at her. To them, she was just another alien beggar, someone who did not belong, but the man's heart did not allow him to walk away. He rushed forward, kneeling beside her. Her breathing was shallow, her body shaking as if she had not eaten in days. He spoke gently, "Hey, can you hear me?" She whispered something in a weak, broken voice, but he could not understand. Ignoring the stares of others, he helped her sit up. His hands were firm but careful. He pulled a small piece of bread from his lunch bag and placed it in her hand. She looked at him with cloudy eyes and tried to speak again. This time, he heard a faint word. "Chosen." He frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" he asked softly. But before she could answer, her eyes rolled back and she fainted fully into his arms. The man looked around hoping for help, but instead he saw only cold faces. His boss had come out of the warehouse and was glaring at him. The boss's voice was sharp. "What are you doing wasting time on that thing?" The man stood up slowly, carrying the alien woman against his chest. "She's sick," he said. "She needs help." But the boss stepped closer, his face twisted with anger. "Do you think we're running a charity here?" he snapped. "We pay you to work, not to pick up trash from the street." A few workers snickered. Others shook their heads. The man felt his chest tighten with shame and anger. He wanted to speak back to defend himself, but before he could, the boss shouted, "You're fired." The words hit harder than a blow. Fired, just like that. After all the years he had given to this place, the man's heart sank. He thought of the rent, the food, the life that depended on this job. But when he looked down at the fragile alien woman in his arms, he knew he could not leave her there. The boss turned his back and walked away, his voice still sharp. "Don't come back, you're finished here." The man stood frozen for a moment, the weight of the alien woman heavy in his arms. Rain began to fall, cold drops running down his face. He looked at the workers who avoided his eyes, at the strangers who hurried past, and then back at the woman who had called him chosen. He felt anger boil inside him, but also something else, a strange pull. He could not explain it, but it was as if helping her was the only right thing left in his broken world. He tightened his grip and whispered, "Don't worry, I won't leave you." As he carried her away from the warehouse, each step felt heavier. His future had just fallen apart. His job, his stability, his safety, all gone in a single moment. Yet with each step, he also felt a spark deep inside, as if this fall was not just an end, but the beginning of something he could not yet understand. The old alien woman stirred slightly in his arms. Her lips moved, whispering again the word, "Chosen." Her voice was weak, but it carried a weight that made his skin prickle. The man looked at her, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He did not know what destiny had just opened before him, but he knew this was no ordinary fall. It was the fall that would change his life forever. Asterisk. The man pushed open the door of his small apartment, his arms aching from carrying the old alien woman all the way home. The place was nothing more than a single room with a bed, a table, and a chair. The air smelled faintly of old wood and dust, but it was the only shelter he had left. He laid her gently on the bed, her breathing weak and shallow. For a long moment he stood still, listening to the sound of rain tapping against the window. His mind raced. He had lost his job. He had no savings to last more than a few weeks. And now he had brought a sick alien woman into his home. It made no sense. But when he looked at her, Something inside him refused to abandon her. He found an old blanket and covered her fragile body. Her gray skin looked cracked, her face hollow with hunger. He boiled water in a small pot and dropped in the last handful of rice he had left. The smell filled the room, plain but warm. When the food was ready, he lifted a spoonful to her lips. At first she did not respond, but then slowly, her mouth opened and she swallowed. A faint color returned to her cheeks, and her hands trembled. As if she wanted more, he fed her gently, spoon by spoon, until her eyes fluttered open. Her voice was soft, broken like dry leaves in the wind. "You, chosen," she whispered. The man frowned. "Chosen for what?" he asked. He tried to keep his voice calm, but his heart thudded in his chest. She blinked slowly, her eyes cloudy, yet glowing faintly with a strange light. "The gift must not fall." "Wrong hands," she murmured. Her fingers clutched at the edge of the blanket, her thin nails digging into the fabric. The man shook his head, confused. "I don't understand," he said. I'm just a worker. I'm nobody." Her lips curved in a faint, tired smile. "Not nobody," she whispered. "You helped. When others turned away, that is why the choice was made." Her words unsettled him. He had never believed in destiny. To him, life was about surviving day by day, working long hours and going home to a cold, empty room. But something about her tone made the air feel heavier, as if unseen eyes were watching. He reached for the cup of water and offered it to her. She drank slowly, then leaned back, her breathing uneven. After a moment, she closed her eyes and whispered again. This time in a language he did not know. The sounds were sharp, almost like songs carried by the wind. As she spoke, faint patterns appeared on her skin, glowing lines that ran across her arms and face. They flickered like blue fire before fading into nothing. The man stepped back in shock, his hands trembling. He had never seen anything like it. Before he could ask questions, a noise outside the window made him freeze. Heavy footsteps echoed in the wet street below, followed by the sound of low voices. He moved quietly to the window and pulled the curtain aside just a little. Down below, he saw two figures dressed in dark uniforms, their helmets reflecting the rain. They carried strange devices that glowed faintly red as they scanned the street. One of them muttered, "She couldn't have gone far." The man's breath caught in his throat. He turned back to the woman. Her eyes were open again, wide with fear. She shook her head weakly, whispering, "Hunters?" The word made his stomach twist. He had heard rumors in the city, stories about groups who tracked aliens for reasons no one spoke about. Some said they worked for the government. Others said they were part of something darker. But seeing them so close sent a chill down his spine. The woman struggled to sit up, clutching his arm with surprising strength. "Hide, must hide," she whispered urgently. Without thinking, he pulled her off the bed and guided her to a small storage space beneath the floorboards. He had once used it to keep food hidden from rats. Now it would have to hide a life. He lowered her down gently, covering the boards again, just as a loud knock shook his door. The man's heart hammered. He tried to calm his breathing, but sweat rolled down his neck. Another knock came, louder this time, followed by a voice. "Open up. Routine check." He hesitated, then slowly opened the door a crack. One of the uniformed men stood there, water dripping from his helmet. The man's eyes were sharp, scanning the room behind him. "We're looking for someone," the soldier said. "Old alien female, weak, injured. Have you seen her?" The man swallowed hard, his mouth dry. His mind screamed to tell the truth, but his chest burned with a strange courage he had not felt before. He shook his head slowly. "No, I haven't," he said, his voice steady. The soldier narrowed his eyes, holding his scanner higher. For a moment, the red light flickered near the floorboards. The man's heart nearly stopped. But then the soldier grunted, turned away, and walked off. The second man followed, their footsteps fading into the night. The man shut the door, his hands shaking. He knelt and pulled open the boards. The alien, Woman's eyes stared up at him wide with both fear and trust. Safe, she whispered weakly. Because of you. He sat back on the floor, his chest heaving. He knew now that this was no simple act of kindness. Whatever he had stepped into, it was dangerous, and it was only the beginning. The night was heavy with silence after the soldiers left. The man sat on the floor, his breath still unsteady. The old alien woman slowly climbed out from the hiding space, her frail body shaking. Her eyes carried both fear and warning. She whispered again, "Hunters, they will not stop." The man rubbed his face with both hands. He had lost his job only hours ago, and now strangers with weapons were knocking on his door. It all felt unreal. Yet the truth stood in front of him. He had chosen to protect her, and that choice had already changed his life. He tried to ask calmly, "Who are they?" Her voice cracked as she answered, "Not soldiers. Not protectors. They serve power. Not people. They search for what I carry, and they will burn everything to find it." Her thin hands clutched her chest as if hiding something inside. The man's heart pounded. "What is it that you carry?" The alien woman lowered her gaze, her voice barely a whisper. "Hope and danger both." Before he could ask more, a sudden thud outside made him jump. The sound of boots splashing in puddles echoed near his window. He crept to the curtain and peeked through the small gap. This time there were 4 of them, their dark uniforms shining wet under the streetlight. They moved like shadows, scanning each doorway with their red devices. One of them spoke into a communicator. "Signal stronger here, we close in soon." The man's stomach twisted. He backed away, his voice hushed. "They're still here and they're getting closer." The alien woman's skin flickered faintly again with glowing lines. They pulsed brighter when the red scanning lights outside passed over the building. She gasped softly, clutching her arms as if in pain. The man's eyes widened. "They can track you," she nodded weakly. "The gift calls to them. It shines, cannot hide forever." Panic pressed against his chest. He looked around the room, but there was nowhere else to hide. Nowhere safe. He clenched his fists, trying to think. The hunters were coming, and if they found her here, it would be over. A sudden pounding shook the building, not his door this time, but one just below. Angry voices barked orders. The sound of wood breaking followed. Neighbors screamed in fear. The hunters were forcing their way into every home, searching one by one. The alien woman grabbed his sleeve, her grip surprisingly strong. Her eyes were wide, filled with desperation. "You must run, take me away from here, or both will die." His mind raced. He had nowhere to run, no plan, but something inside him refused to give up. He had already lost everything, there was nothing left to protect except her. And strangely, that felt enough. He pulled on his jacket and lifted her carefully, wrapping the blanket around her to cover her glowing skin. He opened the back window, the rain still pouring outside. The narrow alley below was dark, filled with trash and broken crates. It was dangerous, but safer than waiting inside. Climbing down the old fire escape, he gritted his teeth against the cold metal. His arms ached from carrying her, but he kept moving behind them. The sounds of doors breaking and voices shouting grew louder. The hunters were inside his building now. The alley smelled of wet rust and smoke. The man ran as fast as he could, his boots splashing in the puddles. He turned corner after corner, but the sound of footsteps followed. The hunters were trained, fast and relentless. He ducked into a narrow passage, pressing himself against the wall. He held the alien woman close, her body trembling. The red glow of scanners swept across the street only a few meters away. He held his breath, his heart hammering so loud he feared they would hear it. One of the hunters paused, tilting his head as if listening. The red light swept dangerously close to their hiding place. The man tightened his arms around her, ready to run if discovered. But just then, a stray cat darted across the street, knocking over a tin can. The noise drew the hunter's attention away. Their boots pounded off in the other direction, chasing shadows. The man exhaled slowly, his knees weak. He whispered, "That was too close." The alien woman looked up at him with tired eyes. "They will not stop until I am gone, or until you choose." Her words sank deep into him. What choice did he have? He could leave her in the street and walk away, pretending none of this had happened. But when he imagined her lying helpless, hunted like an animal, something inside him hardened. He shook his head, his voice firm though quiet. "No, I'm not leaving you." She studied his face as if weighing his soul. Then she nodded faintly. Then destiny begins. In the distance, the hunters' voices echoed through the rain, calling to each other, their search spreading wider. The man knew the city was no longer safe. If he stayed, they would find them. If he ran, he had no idea where to go. Yet even in his fear, a strange fire burned in his chest, stronger than before. He had lost his job, his old life, his safety, but perhaps he had gained something else, something dangerous and powerful. The hunters were closing in, and he had no answers, but he had a choice. And for the first time in his life, he felt that choice was his to make. The man finally stopped running when his legs burned and his breath came in sharp gasps. He found himself in an old part of the city, a place forgotten by most. Broken buildings leaned against each other, windows shattered, walls marked with graffiti and dust. The rain still fell, dripping from rusted pipes and pooling in the cracks of the street. He carried the old alien woman into the doorway of an abandoned shop. Inside, the shelves were empty and the air smelled of mold, but at least it was dry. He lowered her gently onto the floor. His arms ached, his heart pounded, yet he felt a strange calm settle over him. He had outrun the hunters for now. The alien woman's breathing was uneven. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly in the dim light. She whispered, "It is time you know." The man crouched beside her. "Know what?" he asked, his voice heavy with confusion and exhaustion. Her trembling hands reached for the blanket wrapped around her. She pulled it aside and revealed a small bundle tied close to her chest. The fabric was old and worn, but as she loosened it, a faint light spilled out, soft and blue like the glow of distant stars. The man's eyes widened. Inside the bundle was a small object no bigger than his hand. It was smooth, shaped like a crystal sphere, but alive with shifting lights inside. As he stared, the colors twisted and danced, forming patterns that seemed to speak without words. "What is that?" he whispered, unable to look away. The alien woman's voice was fragile, but steady. "The seed of memory," she said. "It holds the knowledge of my people, the last of what we were before the hunters destroyed us." The man blinked, struggling to understand. "Why give it to me?" he asked. "I'm no one. I'm just a worker." Her thin lips curved into a faint smile. "Not no one. You chose to help when others turned away. That is the mark of one who can carry it." The sphere pulsed brighter, as if it heard her. Words. The glow spread across the man's face, warming his skin. His chest tightened with fear. "No, I can't. I don't even know what this thing does." "Touch it," she whispered. "Only you can." His hand shook as he reached toward. At the moment his fingers brushed the surface, the sphere flared with light. A surge of energy rushed through him. His mind filled with flashes, images of strange cities built of silver towers, alien skies lit by two suns, voices speaking in languages he had never known. Yet somehow he understood them all. He pulled his hand back in shock, gasping. The glow dimmed, but the warmth lingered inside his chest. What was that?" he stammered. "The gift," she said softly. "It recognizes you. You are chosen to carry it, to protect it, to keep it from falling into the hands of hunters who would twist it for war." The man shook his head, fear rising. "I can't. I don't want this. They're already after me because of you. If I carry this, they'll never stop." Her eyes locked on his, sharp despite her weakness. "They will never stop anyway, not until it is theirs or destroyed. And if it is destroyed, my people are gone forever." Silence filled the room, broken only by the dripping of rain through the broken roof. The man felt the weight of her words press against him. He had thought his life was simple, work, survive, sleep. But now destiny had pushed something ancient and powerful into his hands. He wanted to throw it away, to pretend it was never his. Yet when he looked at her, frail and trembling, and thought of the hunters tearing through the city, he knew he could not. Before he could answer, the sound of engines rumbled in the distance. Lights cut through the rain outside the broken windows. The hunters were sweeping the streets with armored vehicles. Now, searching for them. The alien woman pressed the sphere into his hands, her voice urgent. It is bound to you now. It will answer to your heart, not theirs. Protect it, or the stars will grow darker. The sphere pulsed once, as if alive. The man's chest tightened, his fear mixing with something else, a strange strength. It was as if the object had awakened something inside him that had been asleep all his life. He clenched his fist around it, whispering, "If they want it, they'll have to go through me." The woman smiled weakly, her eyes closing. "Then, you have already chosen." The engines outside grew louder, red lights sweeping across the ruined street. The man tucked the glowing sphere into his jacket, stood tall, and looked toward the door. His life had been torn apart, but now in his hands he carried not just survival, but a secret gift that could change everything. And for the first time since his fall, he felt that destiny was pulling him forward, not down. The man tightened his jacket around the glowing sphere. Its warmth spread through his chest, steady and alive. Outside the ruined shop, the sound of engines rumbled closer. Hunters shouted orders, their red scanners sweeping the streets like searchlights. Every second felt like a drumbeat of danger. The old alien woman pushed herself up weakly, her voice urgent. "We must move, they will burn this place." He helped her stand, her frail body leaning against him. Together they slipped out through the back of the shop into a narrow alley. Rain poured from above, masking their footsteps. But the glow of red scanners flashed against the walls. A hunter's voice cut through the storm. "The signal is stronger. Here. She's close. Spread out." The man's heart pounded. He pulled the woman deeper into the maze of alleys. His boots splashed through puddles, each sound echoing too loud. He turned corner after corner, but every direction seemed blocked by shadows. The hunters were everywhere, moving with cold precision. Suddenly a beam of red light swept across the alley, hitting his back. A sharp voice shouted, "There, stop." He didn't stop. He grabbed the woman's hand and ran. His legs burned with effort, the sphere pulsing against his chest like a heartbeat. Behind them came the sound of boots pounding, metallic and heavy. A bolt of light exploded against the wall beside him, stone and sparks flying. The hunters had weapons, energy rifles that hissed with power. He ducked low, dragging the woman behind a broken dumpster. Another bolt hit, shaking the ground. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. "Keep moving," the woman whispered, her voice shaking but determined. He pulled her out, pushing forward. They stumbled through a broken fence into a courtyard filled with trash and rusted vehicles. The rain pounded harder, blurring his vision, but he saw a narrow passage between two collapsed buildings. "This way," he said. They squeezed through, the gap scraping against broken bricks. On the other side was another street, darker and quieter. For a moment, he thought they had lost them. But then a hunter's voice echoed, "Block the exits. They can't run far." Panic rose. The man knew the hunters were closing in from every direction. His chest heaved, his strength nearly gone. The woman stumbled, falling to her knees. He knelt beside her, trying to lift her, but she pushed the sphere harder against his chest. "Use it," she whispered. "It answers only to you." He looked down, the sphere glowing through his jacket. "How?" he asked, his voice desperate. Her weak eyes locked on his. "Trust." Before he could think, a shadow loomed. A hunter stepped into the street ahead, weapon raised, the red scanner lit up, locking on the sphere's glow. The hunter shouted, "Drop it, human, now." The man's body froze. His heart screamed to run, but his arms held the sphere tighter. The hunter fired. A streak of energy cut through the rain toward him, but before the bolt struck, the sphere flared. A shield of blue light burst outward, the energy dissolving harmlessly. In the air, the hunter stumbled back in shock, shouting, It's active. The man stared at his own hands, the glowing shield wrapping him and the woman in a dome of light. It felt warm, alive, like it was part of him. The hunter raised his weapon again, but the man stood tall, a fire burning in his chest. He stepped forward and the shield pulsed, knocking the hunter back as if struck by a hammer. The alien woman gasped. "It has chosen you fully." But there was no time to celebrate. More hunters appeared from the shadows, weapons raised. There, boots splashed as they formed a circle. The man's mind raced. He could not fight them all, not like this. He grabbed the woman's hand again. The shield still glowed faintly around him. He pushed forward, running straight at the line of hunters. They fired, bolts of energy streaking through the storm. But each shot hit the shield and shattered into sparks. The man roared with effort, the sphere pulsing stronger with every step. The hunters stumbled back, shouting in confusion. The man broke through their line, dragging the woman with him. They sprinted down the street, the shield flickering but holding. Behind them came furious cries. "Don't let them escape!" Engines roared again. A large vehicle turned the corner ahead, its headlights blinding. The man skidded to a stop, trapped between the hunters behind and the armored transport ahead. Soldiers poured from the vehicle, rifles glowing. The woman squeezed his hand, whispering, "The sphere will guide, trust." The man closed his eyes for a moment. His heart raced, but he held the sphere with both hands, willing it to act. The light grew brighter, filling the street with a blinding glow. The hunters shielded their faces, shouting in confusion. When the glow faded, the man and the woman were gone. The street was empty. Only rain and silence remained. Far away in a tunnel beneath the city, the man gasped for air. The sphere's glow dimmed in his hands. It had moved them, pulled them out of danger in the last moment. The woman leaned against him, her lips trembling with a weak smile. "You see now? The gift is not a burden. It is a path." The man's hands shook. His life had turned into a storm he never asked for, but as he held the sphere, he knew there was no turning back. The chase was not over. It had only just begun. The tunnel was silent, except for the dripping of water from old stone walls. The man leaned against the damp bricks, his chest rising, and falling as he caught his breath. The alien woman rested beside him, her frail body trembling from exhaustion. The sphere in his hands glowed faintly, casting a soft blue light that painted their faces in the darkness. For a long moment, neither spoke. The man stared at the sphere, its light pulsing like a living heart. He could still feel the warmth inside, his chest, the strange energy that had saved them from certain death, yet with it came a heavy weight. He had not asked for this power, nor the danger that followed it. Finally, the woman broke the silence. Her voice was weak, but steady. "The time has come, you must choose." The man looked at her sharply, his voice strained. "Choose what?" She held his gaze, her cloudy eyes glowing faintly in the sphere's light. "Either you walk away, leave me and the seed, and return to the life you knew, or you accept what has been given, take the burden, and face the hunters until the end." Her words cut into him like a blade. He thought of his old life, the warehouse, the steady routine. It had been hard, but it was safe, predictable. He thought of his bed, his small meals, his quiet nights alone. He could still have that if he abandoned her now, but when he imagined leaving her, broken and hunted, his chest ached. He saw again the moment she collapsed in the rain, the way people had ignored her, the way his boss had called her trash. If he left her, he would become no better than them. He rubbed his face, his voice rough. "You don't understand. I'm nobody. I can't fight soldiers. I can't fight this destiny you keep talking about." The woman reached out, her thin fingers curling around his wrist. Her touch was cold but firm. "You already fought. You chose me over safety. You stood against them when they came to your door. That is strength." The man shook his head, his voice breaking. "No, that was just instinct. I didn't think. I just couldn't watch you suffer." Her eyes softened. "That is exactly why you were chosen." The words echoed inside him. He looked down at the sphere again, its glow reflecting in his eyes. He remembered the shield it created, the power that burst outward when he stood tall. It had felt natural, as if the sphere was not just an object but a part of him. The woman leaned back, her voice dropping to a whisper. The hunters will not stop. Even now they search the tunnels. If you walk away, they will find me. They will take the seed, and with it, they will burn worlds. But if you carry it, if you guard it, there is hope. The man closed his eyes, his mind screamed to run, to throw the sphere away and pretend none of this ever happened. But deep inside, another voice rose, quieter yet stronger. It reminded him of all he had lost, his job, his safety, his old life. He had nothing left to cling to. But maybe that was why he could take this risk. His breathing slowed. He opened, his eyes the glow of the sphere reflecting in his pupils. His voice was firm now, steady. I can't walk away. The alien woman's lips curved into a faint smile. Her hands trembled as she reached toward the sphere. Then you have chosen, and the path opens. The sphere pulsed brighter, filling the tunnel with blue light. The man gasped as images rushed into his mind again. Stars stretched across black skies, great cities rising like mountains, and shadows of war spreading across them. Then, a map appeared before his eyes, glowing symbols forming lines across the air. The woman whispered, "The seed shows the path to those who protect it. It will guide you to others who hide from the hunters. You are not alone." The man stared at the map, glowing in the air like fireflies. It pointed to a place beyond the city, far into the wastelands where no one dared to go. His heart pounded. He had no food, no money, no plan, yet destiny was pushing him forward. He looked back at the woman, her body slumping from weakness. He knew she could not walk far. The journey would be hard, dangerous, maybe impossible, but he also knew the choice was made. There was no going back. From deeper in the tunnels came the echo of boots. The hunters were near again, their voices carried through the dripping halls, sharp and cold. The man tightened his grip on the sphere. The warmth filled him with courage. He stood and pulled the woman gently to her feet. "We move now," he said, his voice stronger than before. She leaned against him, nodding faintly. "Yes, now begins the true path." The glow of the sphere lit their way through the dark tunnels. The man felt fear clawing at his chest. But beneath it was something stronger. Purpose he had chosen, and that choice gave him strength. The hunters were closing, in their lights flashing in the darkness, but the man no longer thought of running aimlessly. He had a destination now, a path given by the seed. His old life was gone, and what lay ahead was dangerous and uncertain. But deep inside, for the first time, he felt he was walking toward something greater, not away. The tunnels twisted like veins beneath the city. The man moved forward with the alien woman leaning on his arm. The sphere's faint glow lit the path, guiding them through dripping stone corridors. Behind them, the echoes of hunters grew weaker, though never far enough to forget. Every step was heavy, but his choice had been made, and that gave him strength. Hours passed as they climbed broken stairways and crossed forgotten bridges. At last, the tunnel opened into the edge of the wasteland, a vast stretch of cracked earth and broken ruins outside the city walls. The cold wind struck his face, sharp and dry. Above them, the sky stretched wide, stars glimmering faintly between rolling clouds. The alien woman pointed weakly toward the horizon. Her voice trembled but carried hope. "There, the map leads us there." Far in the distance, among the wasteland hills, a faint light flickered. Like a beacon, the man narrowed his eyes, his chest tightening. It was far, maybe days of walking, but it was real, a destination. They set out across the barren ground. The sphere glowed brighter each time he looked toward the light, guiding them forward. The woman stumbled often, her strength fading, but he never let her fall. He carried her when her legs gave way, his body aching but his heart unwilling to stop. As dawn broke, the wasteland came alive with whispers of wind. The man could see broken towers in the distance, crumbled remains of a city long dead. In its shadow, hidden by stone and earth, He saw movement. At first he feared hunters, but then shapes stepped forward, smaller, fragile, their eyes glowing faintly like the woman's. They were aliens, a dozen of them, men, women, and children. Their clothes were worn, their faces thin, from hunger, yet their eyes lit with surprise and relief when they saw the old woman. She raised her hand weakly, whispering, "I made it." The group hurried forward, catching her as she nearly collapsed. Their voices were soft, filled with joy and sorrow. They looked at the man next, cautious, uncertain, until the woman lifted her hand and pointed to the sphere he carried. "He is the one, he carries the seed." Gasps spread among them. Some knelt, others touched their foreheads in respect. The man shifted uncomfortably, his voice low. "I'm no hero. I just helped when no one else would." But the old woman shook her head, her voice breaking. "That is what makes you more than a hero. That is what makes you human." The aliens led them into their hidden shelter, carved deep within the ruins. Inside were more of them. Survivors who had fled the hunters, faces worn by pain, looked up as they entered. But when they saw the sphere glowing in his hands, hope returned to their eyes. The man looked around, realizing these were families, children clutching their mothers, old men sitting weak against the walls. They were not warriors, not enemies, just people trying to live. He felt the weight of the sphere in his chest, heavier now, but not as a burden. It was a responsibility. The woman sank down onto a stone bench, her strength nearly gone. Her eyes softened as she looked at him. "I told you. Destiny gave you something greater than you lost." He lowered himself beside her, his voice quiet. "I thought I had nothing. Left my job, my place, everything was gone, but now I see. Maybe that fall wasn't an end. It was a beginning." Children peeked at him from behind the walls, their eyes wide as they whispered to each other. One brave child stepped forward and touched his hand, staring at the glowing sphere with wonder. The man smiled faintly, feeling warmth fill him, not from the sphere, but from their trust. Outside, the hunters still searched the world. He knew danger had not ended. If anything, it had grown. But now he was not alone. The survivors looked at him not as a stranger, but as someone who carried their future, their hope. The woman placed her trembling hand on his arm. "You are no longer just one man. You are part of something larger, something that can change both our peoples." Her words echoed in his heart. He thought of the cold warehouse, the cruel boss, the laughter of coworkers who turned away. That life seemed small now, meaningless compared to this. He had fallen, yes, but he had fallen into purpose. As night settled again, the survivors gathered around a small fire. The man sat with them, the sphere glowing between his hands. Its light reflected in every pair of eyes, human and alien alike. For the first time in his life, he did not feel empty. He felt needed. He felt alive. The hunters would return. He knew battles still lay ahead, but he also knew that destiny had given him more than a job, more than survival. It had given him family, faith, and a path that could unite two broken worlds. The alien woman smiled faintly, closing her tired eyes. "Greater than what you lost," she whispered. "Greater than what you imagined." The man looked at the stars above, the sphere glowing steady in his hands. He was no longer afraid because his fall had given him the greatest reward of all, purpose.